Our first story begins in the quiet suburbs of a Midwestern town. Matt, a food delivery driver for a popular app, was working late into the night trying to pick up a few extra orders before heading home. It was a slow night. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. That is, until he got a delivery request from an unfamiliar address on the outskirts of town. The instructions were vague, but the payout was unusually high. Matt, in a skeptical voice, muttering to himself, "Must be some rich guy's house. I could use the extra cash." But when he arrived at the location, something was off. The house was large but looked abandoned, overgrown lawn, broken windows, and no lights. Yet the app confirmed it was the correct address. Against his better judgment, Matt decided to knock on the door. He waited and waited. No answer. Just as he turned to leave, his phone buzzed. Matt, looking nervous, "Great, backdoor deliveries in the middle of nowhere. Just what I needed." As Matt made his way to the back of the house, the air felt colder and the sound of crickets suddenly disappeared. His footsteps echoed in the eerie silence. When he reached the back door, he noticed it was slightly ajar. Inside, the house looked even more abandoned. Peeling wallpaper, dusty furniture, and a strange smell that made his stomach churn, but still, no one appeared to be home. As he tried to contact the customer, his phone buzzed once more. This time, a single message, "Come upstairs." Matt, whispering to himself, "What the hell?" His heart raced as he debated what to do next. Was it a prank? Was someone watching him? But then he heard it. A faint creak from the floor above. Someone or something was up there. Matt bolted out of the house, jumped into his car, and sped off into the night. But the nightmare didn't end there. When he tried to report the incident to the app, the address didn't exist. There was no record of the delivery, no trace of the customer, and the house vanished from the map. To this day, Matt refuses to deliver outside city limits. And while he's never been able to explain what happened that night, one thing is certain: some deliveries should never be made. Story 2. Sarah had been working for a food delivery service for about a year. Most nights were uneventful, but there was one night she would never forget. It was a slow shift, and just as she was about to call it quits, she got a request, an odd one. The delivery wasn't for a house or apartment, it was for a gas station. The customer's instructions were clear. "Meet me by the payphone at the corner of Highway 42. Do not call or message, just leave the food and go." A generous tip was promised, Sarah smirking, muttering to herself, "Easy money, I guess." But the more Sarah thought about it, the stranger it seemed. Who orders food to a gas station payphone in the middle of nowhere? Still, she accepted the order, hoping it was just some eccentric customer. When she pulled into the gas station, there was no one in sight. The payphone was old and rusty, barely visible under the flickering lights. Sarah stepped out of the car and left the food by the payphone, just as instructed. But as she turned to leave, a loud ringing echoed through the night. The payphone was ringing. She froze, unsure whether to answer it. No one had been around when she arrived, so who could be calling? Against her instincts, she picked up the receiver. Sarah, speaking into the phone, voice trembling. "Hello?" There was silence on the other end. For a few moments, Sarah thought the line was dead. Then, in a low, distorted voice, someone whispered, "Don't turn around." Her heart pounded in her chest as she realized she wasn't alone. In the distance, just beyond the edge of the gas station's light, she saw a figure standing perfectly still, watching her. Sarah dropped the phone and ran back to her car, speeding away without looking back. She didn't stop driving until she reached the safety of the city. When she tried to report the incident to the police, they found no evidence of anyone being at the gas station that night. No footprints, no signs of a person watching her. The only thing left behind was the cold, uneaten food by the payphone. Sarah never worked the night shift again, and to this day she wonders who or what was waiting for her at that lonely gas station. Story 3. For Jake, food delivery was just a part-time gig. a way to make some extra cash while finishing school. He'd had his share of weird customers, but nothing out of the ordinary, until one Friday night. The order seemed simple enough, a single meal from a local diner, heading to an upscale apartment building in the heart of the city. But when Jake arrived at the address, things started to feel off. The building was pristine, but there was no sign of life. No doorman, no residents, and no lights in the windows. As Jake walked to the elevator, he felt a strange sense of unease. The customer had ordered the food to be delivered to the penthouse, the top floor. As the elevator ascended, Jake felt the air grow colder, the silence almost unbearable. When he reached the penthouse, the door was already slightly open. A faint light spilled out into the hallway, but there was no sound, no voices, no movement. Jake, knocking softly, "Hello, your food's here." There was no response. Just as Jake was about to leave the food by the door, he heard a faint voice from inside the apartment. "Come in! The door's open!" Something about the voice sent chills down his spine, but he pushed the door open just a little wider, stepping inside. The apartment was immaculate, fancy furniture, modern decor, but it felt completely lifeless. The lights flickered slightly, casting eerie shadows along the walls. Jake, calling out, "Hello! I've got your food!" Again the voice called out, softer this time. "I'm in the back! Bring it here!" Jake's instincts were screaming at him to leave, but something compelled him to keep moving forward. As he approached the last room, the faint voice grew silent. He knocked once, twice, no answer. Then, summoning the last bit of courage he had, Jake pushed the door open. The room was completely empty. No person, no furniture, just a single chair facing the window. The curtains were drawn and the air was icy cold. But the strange thing was, the food order was already there, sitting neatly on the chair, untouched. Jake's heart pounded as he backed out of the room, the unsettling realization hitting him hard. Someone or something had lured him there, and they'd been watching him the whole time. Terrified, Jake fled the building, leaving the food behind. When he reported the incident to the app, they claimed the order had been canceled hours earlier. There was no record of the address, no customer by that name, and no explanation for what Jake had experienced. Jake never delivered to that building again, but he couldn't shake the feeling that whoever or whatever had placed that order had been waiting for him, watching. Sometimes the scariest part of a food delivery isn't the destination. It's the unknown lurking behind the door. Whether it's a mysterious request, a creepy voice on the other end of the phone, or an address that shouldn't exist, these stories remind us that danger can be closer than we think. So next time you order food or take on a delivery, remember, some orders might be better left undelivered, because you never know who or what is waiting on the other side.